Right, we're live. Couple of minutes early, but we're live.
Yep. Just give the guys a chance to get in the door, get a seat, and all the rest of it.
Something like that. Aye. I'm just going to get Facebook up.
Yeah. Guys a chance to get in the door, get a seat, and all the rest of it. Something like that.
Hi, Kirsty. You're the first one in the door on Facebook. So, aye. Enjoying the weather, David?
Yeah, well, the cabin's a wee bit warm today. I've got the door open.
Aye.
You can see we've got the washing up.
Hey, I'm just sort of, it's warm enough. I just never cast a coat to me. No, I put the jumper on as walking the dog. It's a wee breeze here.
Because we've got a terrace garden, and you've seen it before, right? And because it's sort of all enclosed, it becomes a bit of a heat trap.
Aye.
So when it gets warm, it gets very, very warm.
Right, we'll get people coming in the door at a rapid rate of knots now, so let's have a look. We'll get Paul, we'll get Last Braveheart, we'll get Brian, we'll get George, we'll get Aki's, we'll get Margaret, we'll get George again, Ali Watson and Bruce Smart, we'll get Chris, Fiona, SDW and Nathan McAllister. And out on Facebook we've got millions. We'll get Kirsty, Mark, Margaret, Sheila, Neil, Ian, Nigel. Hi Nigel, how's things in Oz? We've got Elizabeth out in Germany. Hi. Hello Elizabeth, how's Duisburg? We've got Robert watching, we've got John watching, we've got Stephen Kelly watching on Facebook. So, welcome aboard folks, you're starting to pile in nicely. We'll give you a wee second, Mary's in because we did go live a wee bit early. Total on my screen at the moment is 55, but I'll shoot up in a minute. Hi Stella, hi Lorraine, hi Vince. I see Mad Monks there and all, and Donald. Here we go over here. Hi Caroline. So we're getting there. Well, it's been quite an eventful few days since we were last on, David, is it not?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Plenty to talk about anyway.
Oh, aye, Scotland's gone to bits apparently according to these feckers in the media, but we'll get to that, shall we? I can't find the Scotland good story anywhere. You know, it would appear that you bunch are a bunch of feckless, useless gits according to our press. And so is our government according to our press.
But don't forget, there are other bits of the news services. I mean, I've put a video and an article on the Great Reset after independence.
Aye, so, hey, hi John. Hey Rosie. Hey Nancy. Hey John Swinney. So we've got John Oxford Senior, John Swinney, Gary Sandman. Hi Lorna. Right, we're up there, David. So we've got a wee bit to get into. We'll get our teeth into. Hi Will Pitt.
I've got my clicky pen at the ready.
Aye, I've got a clicky pen here and all, but we better watch for these clicky pens because you know how police Scotland are with these bloody things. You know, so you've got to be careful with clicky pens, folks. If you've got a yellow one that says SMP on it, hide it under your pillow. I've got them all stashed at the door. So the police can't see my clicky pens collection. You know, I don't want dragged in and investigated. But we'll get to that because that's coming up.
And we've got tea bags as well. We're
empty tea bags, but anyway. First up, another SNP Scottish Government bad story. Apparently, we've got a looming crisis coming in the care sector because COSLA and Care Scotland haven't been able to agree a deal for care homes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to let people understand how this works, the way the Scottish Government, COSLA, and the local authorities work with private care homes is they contract the private care homes to look after people, and the maximum profit that care home can make is capped at 4%. The problem is The problem at this point in time is with inflation, wage inflation and things like that, that 4% that they have left, or they're allowed to make profit, isn't there unless they get a bigger boost to what they get. And of course, care workers now in care home settings have got to be paid a minimum of £12 an hour, and that puts a strain on them as well. So that's been set by the Scottish Government. Well, of course, the Scottish Government put the money to one side to pay for the pay rise. But the argument is in the contract because the cost of keeping a resident has went up because of the increase in food prices, increase in electricity, increases in gas, and of course the increased care of paying the carers. Yeah. So as I say, according to our Britain Press today, there's a problem. But as you and I both know, they will probably cure this at the last minute, the way they always do in these negotiations.
Yeah, they're always playing brinksmanship, right? And that's COSLA. That's COSLA, and also the councils that COSLA actually does the deal for, right? It's brinksmanship. That's all it is. It will resolve. Don't worry about it. Because do you think we're not going to have a care service? Do you think we're not going to have care homes for the audience? Of course we are.
Well, no, according to our press, care homes will be shutting in their droves because they won't be able to stay home. But as you and I and everybody else here knows, that's negotiating tactics by the care homes. Yeah. Of course. I mean,
is it possible we could have newspapers that say, well, if this doesn't go the way we say, we're all going to close, and we'd all go, bring it on.
Something along those lines, David, because the performance of our press of late is atrocious. And as you said in the preamble before we come live, some of these journalists are going to have to head for the hills when we get independence. You know?
Yeah, I won't have any issue with them whatsoever. I'll just be able to ignore them from the point of independence and go, well, it's gone the other way, hasn't it, guys? So you're a busted flush. But there will be people that will take issue with figures from Reporting Scotland or whatever, who they're angry at them, right? And there are some people in Scotland that would do things to them, I believe. So they're going to have to get their quick getaway bag and head for the hills, or no, better still, head south across the border.
See, I don't imagine that when we set up the Scottish Broadcasting Service after independence, that any of these muppets will be allowed anywhere near a journalist's jacket.
No.
Because there isn't a journalist amongst them.
Yeah.
You know, anyway.
The propagandists. They're propagandists. That's what they are.
They're propagandists on behalf of the state, the media, the British state. You're absolutely right. Now, the second bad news story for Scotland is Scotland faces a £1 billion shortfall in spending, rising to £1.9 billion over the next 4 years, according to the Scottish Fiscal Commission. It also says that our capital spending is going to be cropped by 14% because of it, because obviously we can't spend on the things that will go planned. And they're also going to have a problem being able to raise extra money out of tax, which is the only fiscal lever that we have, because apparently household incomes are down 4.1% since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't have money to be taxed.
Yeah.
You know, and as we've all said, that one single power that the Scottish Government has just is a useless power when you have a cost of living crisis. You just can't increase taxes that much on people.
Yeah, they can change the bands a bit and throw maybe a bigger percentage onto the ones that are bringing in the biggest income in Scotland, right? But to be honest with you, there's very little wriggle room.
The biggest income, there's very little wriggle room, David, because you live to your means. Yeah. So you got a bloody big mortgage, you got a bloody big house, a bloody big car.
You know, when you talk about taxes, income tax is one of the smallest, right? Yeah, your hydrocarbon tax, your value-added tax, corporation tax, all those are your biggies, and those are the ones that drive countries And what the corporations have been doing for the past wee while is, well, they've been setting off an offshore trust or an offshore bank account or whatever, so that they can actually move any profits to there, and thereby
lower the amount of corporation tax they're having to pay.
you know. So, and we can't do it.
Anyway, the finance secretary has said that she's going to have a look at it. She's going to have a review into taxing and a review into spending, and announcements will be made in the budget later this year. But as we know, this stuff is the consequences of inflation on the Scottish budget.
And that is a consequence of still being part of this bloody union.
Yes, as we know, those buggers doing that road when they adjust the devolved administrations, not just the Scottish one, but the devolved administrations' budgets, to compensate for the high inflation rate. And then,
Scotland has all this money. We are a rich nation. Our wealth in natural resources is through the ceiling. We've got 85% of all the natural resources that exist on mainland Britain, or waters round about, right?
Here, Mary Black speaks in the Commons last week. In fact, the Daily Blasé put it out because he thought it was one of the best speeches he'd ever seen in the Commons. And in it, when that idiot for Aberdeenshire, who's the Tory MP up here, Andrew, whatever his name is, anyway, he was battered back and forth, and Mary had to point out that 70% of our tax is still controlled by Westminster. Wow. You know, but as I say, the problems with the Scottish, but coming down the line with Scottish budget up, and for the Welsh and for the Northern Irish, who I see are demanding another £1 billion as a bung to maybe get back into administration across that ladder.
Well, do we need another £1 billion already?
No, yeah, demanding it now, but...
Yeah, but what did they spend the first £1 billion on?
Thanks, Patricia, and we'll have a wee bit of a news flash on this bank account. We have it. We're just waiting a letter coming in so we can start using it. I mean, we have the bank cards, we have the number, we have everything, but we can't put it out yet until we get this bloody letter saying it's went live. Yeah. So that's a wee update in the bank account, folks. Okay.
I mean, what did they spend the first £1 billion on, David?
Bunging everybody who was involved in sorting out the problems that was created by the Cash for Ash scheme in Ireland, Northern Ireland. And that was the sort of heating thing. They had a scheme going. And when people put in wood burning stoves, apparently they got a few quid's worth. All right.
Well, okay.
But anyway, as I say, you know what my point of view in this is? They're holding 70% of our revenues. Just fucking spend and send them the bill. Simple as that.
Seriously. In actual fact, what you've hit on there is a possible solution. Is carry on, spend. The Scottish government are supposed to balance the books. Well, let's try not balancing the books. Let's just try spending and leave the bill in number 10 Downing Street and let them sort it out.
Aye, listen, that's my attitude. They're holding 70% of the tax raised in Scotland. They're keeping it for reserved matters, apparently. Well, fuck it, just spend.
Yeah, let's
spend.
Let's have a wee catchphrase, but it's in letters. FDIA. Fucking do it anyway.
Which is going to bring us on to the next subject. UK sabotages Scotland's deposit return scheme.
Yes.
With the exclusion of a glass from the scheme. Now, David, this is madness.
I appreciate that. As you say, it's the manufacturers that are actually leading, right? But what's happening is that the mainstream media are blooming hailing it as being a failure by the Scottish government, when in actual fact Sorry, carry on what you're going to say.
No, David, I was going to say that is exactly the point I was going to make. Maurice Goldman was on the BBC this morning and he was getting grilled about this and about the double standards. So, he said he didn't trust the Scottish Government to roll out this scheme. Well, that was the first lie he got away with. The first lie he got away with was the Scottish Government rolling out this scheme. The Scottish Government isn't rolling out this scheme. This scheme's been industry-led. The Scottish Government just passed the law and said to the industry, sort it out. And they have been sorting out. The Scottish Government have been in consultation with them and have been helping them. But it's industry that's rolling out. So there we have the BBC misrepresenting the scheme altogether and allowing a Tory MSP to tell lies. Anybody surprised at that?
No.
And then, of course, the second big thing that got Morris tied in knots was the Westminster Government signed off on the Welsh scheme in January, and that includes glass. Right? Now, Morris then tells, when he's being grilled on that, Morris then says to the BBC, but they haven't asked for an exemption to the external market scheme. The internal market scheme. They don't bloody well have to. It's already been signed off.
And tell me, David, what did you find out about the Welsh Government about that? What was the score?
Oh, they signed off on the scheme in January, so they don't have to ask for an exemption for the internal market because it's already been signed off. It's there. And in the Westminster 2021 report onto this, when they decided to kick England's scheme into the longer grass, was that the devolved administration should run their own bloody schemes. And it's up to them whether they include glass or not.
So what you're effectively saying is that they've already signed off in one of the countries involved in the United Kingdom, and they're refusing to sign off on Scotland, including glass, because it's Scotland.
They're just interfering and undermining devolution because glass is in the English scheme. It was in the Tory manifesto, as has been pointed out by Lorraine. But it was a point I was going to bring up. And the other thing was, did you see that disgusting attack by Martin Geisler?
I didn't see that personally myself. You saw that, but
I've seen the clip on YouTube. But I'm going to put up the National's report on it this morning. Right, this is quite interesting. Martin Geisler and Lorna Slater clash over the deposit return scheme. Okay. Now, what Martin Geisler was saying was Martin Geisler suggested ministers in London would argue the Scottish Government should be on a leash and that they would use this reasoning to justify their blocking on parts of Holyrood plans. So basically, he's saying that ministers in London should have the Scottish Government on a leash and that they should just interfere with Holyrood wherever they want and Holyrood's plans wherever they want.
Well, my statement on that would be that the UK government should have BBC on a leash, definitely up in this neck of the woods, because all they're doing is angering people.
But let's get to the pure comedy gold here with Maurice Golden and his claim about the deposit return scheme in glass. Guess what, people? The biggest producers of glass in Scotland for drinks containers already run deposit return schemes. You've got Alpine, you've got Bars, you've got Duns, you've got Currys, you've got all the wee regional soft drinks makers, all have deposit return schemes. So glass isn't a big problem. And here in Scotland, we already recycle 69% of glass.
Whether that be by taking bottles back or, more importantly,
glass bank at the supermarket.
Glass bank, yeah. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3 glass banks within walking distance here, right? And they're well used.
Aye, of course they are. Of course they are. But as I say, we already massively recycle glass. 69% of all glass containers sold in Scotland are recycled. No good enough, but good.
Robert's put up a nice wee comment. If you have a look, David, can you bring it up front and centre?
That one, cancel your TV licence.
Aye, yeah. You know, if if we're going to get to the point we're going to start doing stuff, right, then why not? Why not actually try putting through a bill through the Scottish Parliament to cancel the use of the TV licence to fund the BBC, as it's only producing propaganda for the UK government?
And Mark's got a good point. He says glass is the first thing you think of when you think of a deposit return scheme. Of course we do, because the deposit return scheme in glass has been here forever.
That's right.
Forever.
Yeah.
Duns, Currys, bars, they've all got deposit return schemes in their glass bottles.
My weekends in Baillieston, when my mother used to take me to my Auntie Cathy, I used to go with my cousin and we used to go around, we used to clear Baillieston of all glass bottles and take them to the convenience store in the main street in Baillieston. And the guy would look at us and go, "Back again, lads."
We all did it.
Yep.
I mean, me and my brothers we spent our summers in St Andrews, and it was Duns up there in Currys.
Yeah.
We used to collect the line these sands, there'd be all these waste paper baskets, and the kids would be bucket diving and taking them along to the wee kiosk to get a juice and a sweetie. It was just normal practice.
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, back in the days, it was take your jam jars to the bloody cinema and get in for nothing, wasn't it?
I will.
You're a wee bit young for that one, David.
I'm too young for that. I really am.
If you're too young for that one, I'm certainly too bloody young for it, that's for sure. So it's just bloody mindedness for the UK government. They have no reason to interfere. Anyway, what Morris did say was that if Lorna was going to go introduce glass, she should just do it anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
And as we know, all the big all the brewers this morning have come out in the papers and said, actually, we want glass in this scheme. We've already weighed out millions of pounds to include glass in this scheme. So, don't worry about being late, Gingers. You can put your arse on the naughty step. I've not lit the candle today, so you're not done that. So it's just bloodiness that has got them tinkering with the Scottish deposit return scheme. And they are the tinkering way in Wales, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Right.
Next one is Ian Livingston.
Aye, Sir Ian Livingston defends Police Scotland's investigation into the SNP finances.
Now, you will remember the other day there when we did the Two Davies that we praised him highly for what he had done. He was raising the bar in terms of what was going to happen in terms of like misogyny, racism, whatever, institutional stuff, right? And then here we have today, we've got the one where he's defending the investigation against Nicola Sturgeon and her husband.
Well, they defended to carry on outside their house because that Murray Foot, as we know, the guy who just stepped in as the SNP's a director of communications. He actually wrote an article and he said, "I'll put money on it that there's nobody going to be charged here. What the hell's going on?" So the guy who made the initial complaint, we're not going to name him, even though we know who he is.
Yeah.
He wasn't named in the Herald when he said he was so unhappy with Police Scotland's Progressive and made another complaint in January this year. Well, spanner. Hey, some of this guy's stunts have been really bad for the independence movement, so it has. Absolutely nut job. But anyway, Sir Ian Livingston is defending it, and what he's saying is we need to follow due process, and it'll take as long as it will take. But there is no due process here. This started in June 2021.
Yeah.
We're almost in June 2023.
And my comment,
nothing.
But in my comment on it was that they're not going to end this. They're going to have to be forced by public opinion to stop it, because therefore they are not policing by public consent.
Now, and the other thing is about this An interesting wee thing is, all this carry on about the SNP and auditors and all that. Well, guess what? The SNP's books have been audited, they've been approved, they've been signed up for the Electoral Commission, and the £1 million that they get for being the third biggest party in Westminster has been secured.
Everybody cheer! Hey!
And you're right, John. They'd no right to investigate it unless it was a member that brought it up, and I don't think it was. I don't think any of them were members.
Yeah.
Because it's members' money. And if they want to use my money to continually campaign for independence, that's why I give them it.
Yeah.
And the money was spent on campaigning for independence, because if you don't win elections, you don't have a platform to launch a referendum or a plebiscite election.
Correct.
So, all that stushy about no auditors and all that, as David and I pointed out, it shouldn't have been hard to find one. It wasn't hard to find one. In fact, David even asked his accountant if he wanted a job. And he said, I'd love the bloody job. There's nothing wrong with their books, but unfortunately I'm getting deregistered as a chartered accountant at the end of the year, so no point.
Yeah, that reminds me, I've got to find the blood. It's me.
Yeah, you've got to find a new chartered accountant. Maybe you can phone up the SNP and ask them who they go and...
No, what I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to phone up the HMRC and say, can you help me? or deregister me for tax. How's about that? Anyway.
What's interesting is, though, there's no heralding of the SNP's books being approved by the mainstream media, the same way there was a carry-on about them not having an auditor. You know,
and is that not a form of propaganda as well, David?
Of course it is. The media is atrocious.
Why would that be a form of propaganda?
Anyway, to go back to the inquiry into the SNP's finances, the only thing they've actually managed to establish so far is, and I hope Mrs. Beattie's watching today, the only thing they've managed to establish in this investigation so far is what brand of tea bags Colin and Mrs. Beattie prefer.
I was shocked that they all used the same brand.
Right, absolutely. And oh, by the way, they also know what brand of secateurs the First Minister uses to prune her roses. Yeah. But so far, this investigation has built up nothing, fun nothing. We've all read the rules. They haven't broken any accounting rules, as far as I can tell, under the Electoral Commission's rules. The money has been spent on into campaigning for independence. That's what it was being provided for.
Did Nicola end up getting her back garden returfed?
I don't know.
Yeah, we need to find that out, actually.
We also need to find out if she got her secateurs back, because their roses are getting out of hand. I mean, Mrs. B will be desperate for a cup of bloody tea by now. Unbelievable.
Did they take milk as well?
Probably.
I thought I heard they took the milk as well.
They did. Oh, they did. You can see it at the top. I went to turn the door on to see if she drank Nescafe or not. Mrs. B, I know you're on my friends list. Could you please pop in a private message whether you drink Nescafe or whether you percolate your own? You know, I tend to make my own on a Sunday, but during the rest of the week I just drink instant stuff, you know. So, Mrs. Beattie, if you could let us know if you also drink coffee along with that tea. So that's what these 2 years have established, that Nicola's got a nice pair of secateurs for printing her roses, and that Mr. and Mrs. Beattie like Tetley tea. It's 2 years of public money to establish that Nicola prunes her roses and Mrs. Beattie likes a wee cuppa. Mental. And Sir Ian Livingston defending that.
Yeah.
Murray Foote was right. This is just a disgrace. Absolutely disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Did you not wash their on, did they? Wow. I hope they sent it back clean. Oh, Jesus. Right, that covers Mr. Livingston's intervention to say that it'll take as long as it takes and due process must be followed. I'd like to know what that process is.
I really, to be honest with you, I can't understand why a chief constable would wish to say such a thing, other than it be a politically motivated statement.
Well, I
Because-
think
let me just make my point, David. Let me just make my point, right? If he's saying it'll take as long as it takes, even a murder investigation has got a cap put on it, where they go, right, we're not getting any further leads here, and therefore we're going to have to make it a cold case.
Aye.
We know that because there are such things as cold cases.
But there's nothing to
Because at the end of the day, the police have realised we can't spend any more money on this, and the police Scotland are spending money hand over fist, or are they? Is the money being provided for this from another direction?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. But as I say, Murray Foot's right. This is just a stitch up, political stitch up. And Sir Ian Livingston saying that the due process must be followed. I'd like to know what the due process is here, because we're 2 years into the investigation, they've found nothing. Nobody's been charged. There's just been a media circuit trying to discredit and smear the SNP. And we've got to be careful what we say, of course. This is a live case. So Police Scotland, come on round and have a wee chat with me, and we'll discuss due process.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, let's move on. Because time's kicking over. We're halfway through the show and we're still got loads of
Something you did a bit of research on, David, is the children panel hearings. Can you tell us what you
Aye, children's hearing system to ditch voluntary model and move to a professional footing. Now, Sheriff David Mackey was tasked with reviewing the children's panel system here in Scotland, right? And so he put together a team at Promise Scotland, because the previous First Minister promised that children in care in Scotland would get much better care and be looked after properly, right? And so a review into the children's panel system has been undertaken. And what they've discovered is that actually it's not very child friendly, the children's panel system. And, it's quite intimidating. I mean, I've taken part in these panels. I've been, as you know, David, Sarah and I have been in through the system with some relatives,
Yeah.
And it is quite intimidating. You get one professional in the room, and that's the children's reporter. And then you've got a panel of 3 volunteers sitting at a tap table, and the parents are sometimes just a child, depending on their circumstance, as a cross for these 3 people, and it's quite intimidating. As I say, I've been in the room advocating for people, you know what I mean? And it is quite intimidating. So the idea is that what they'll do is they'll go to a more professional model. The people who will be on the panels in future will be professionals, and they will be paid a day rate for being there. So you'll have people who know the law, who can advocate properly for families and children. And they will be professionals that are allocated to that family and will move forward with that family through the system. For whatever reason they're there, whether the child's a wee monster or whether the parents are struggling, whatever the reason be. So if Sheriff David Mackey's report and the recommendations in the report are taken up, then we should see an overhaul of the children's panel hearing system. I'll take an interest in this one. I'll watch this one because, obviously, as I say, we've been involved with the system. We've seen how it doesn't work properly. We've seen how parents and children are badly represented by the professionals that are there to help them, and that includes sometimes that's social workers, sometimes it's advocates themselves who are no 100% on the ball on everything. And it takes a lot of time and study. You've got the Children's Act and the Families Act, and what they tend to do in the children's panel system and in the court hearing system is they will mix the 2 acts up to confuse parents and children. One is the rights of the child, while the other one represents the rights of the parents. And what they do is they take a wee section for there and a wee section for there and create their own feckin' rules as they go along and do as they want. And the child and the family don't really get that much input. That's to be changed as well. So I'm looking to see how this will change the children's panel system and how it will improve care here in Scotland for our young people. I'm interested in this one, so I'll keep an eye on this one and I'll keep you updating this one. So, and I don't know if you noticed, folks, but we've been starting here in Scotland today because people have been complaining we haven't been talking enough about Scottish politics because a lot of the big stories are down the road. So today we thought we'd start on a few stories here in Scotland. So the children's panel being basically reformed is quite a big story, and hopefully it's a successful story. Now, what Sheriff Mackey has said is this review is probably as good as it gets. He says he's took his time, he's communicated with the young people who are in the system, who use the system, to make sure that they get it right. So as I say, we'll be watching this one and it'll be interesting, but it is a big story because it's about to change the whole way that children deal with the legal profession and legal situations and family situations in Scotland. So it is a big story, folks. It is an important story, and I'll keep on tapping and keep on tabs. Now, the Scottish Government have taken the report, the Promise Scotland report, and they're reviewing it at the moment, and they says they will decide, they will let us know what they're going to take from this and implement from it. But I think hopefully the review will be taken in full. Now, you can Google the Promise Scotland review and you will get to read it, folks, for anybody like myself who've got an interest in these things. Okay.
Right. I understand that Sir Keir Starmer visited Rutherglen. Oh, why was that, David?
Oh, the rumours of a by-election coming, as you know, because of Margaret Ferrier, but the Tories knew he was coming up here, so they pulled the rug out from under him, didn't they? Kicked it down the road. So the vote's been postponed till sometime next month. But the real reason behind it is the thing being kicked into the longer grass for a wee bit anyway. Wasn't it just that Starmer was up here making a muggy himself? It was because Bojo's in trouble again, and if Ferrier's getting 30 days in the by-election, you know what's happening to Bojo, didn't you?
You've been locked up for 1,000,000 years. That's it,
So, this is a bit of jiggery pokery to try and let the Boris Johnson story die down a bit, because if they slap Margaret Ferrier now with a 30-day suspension, and it only takes a 10-day suspension to allow the presiding officer in a constituency to issue a recall petition, then Bojo's in the poo, isn't he? We're on Bojo. Where Bojo's in the United States last week, wasn't he? Doing a lucrative speaking tour, because 86 grand a year is not enough for Bojo, so he wasn't in Henley working for his constituents. No surprise there. But while he's there in the States, he meets up with the other idiot, Donald Trump, and apparently they were there to discuss Ukraine. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Trump and Johnson have got a different view on Ukraine. Trump doesn't think America should get involved in Ukraine, doesn't think should be supplying the money, doesn't think should be supplying the Ukraine weapons, whereas we know Bojo does. So Bojo was trying to convince his good friend Donald to change his mind. Why? Neither of them are in power and are never likely to get back into power. So what was the bloody point?
They are both Russian assets.
Yes, they are both Russian assets. But you see, Starmer's up here doing his wee troop round Rutherglen, and he tells us that he intends to win, or Labour intend to win that seat. We'll see what happens. You see, I'm not sure whether they'll get the 8,000 signatures they need to actually execute the recall. There's 84,000 constituents in Hamilton West and Rutherglen. I had a look at this, and that would mean 8,400 would need to sign the petition to actually trigger a by-election. Whether people are going to be bothered to sign up for that post an actual general election, I'm not sure.
Well, you can imagine if Starmer is coming up to Rutherglen, he's looking to put a large amount of resource in terms of door chapping in order to get people to think about.
So that's a problem he's got in Rutherglen as well, David, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Starmer's trying to impose a candidate on them.
Yeah.
And CLP, the Constituency Labour Party there, their activists are saying they're not going to campaign for Starmer if he imposes this person on them, as opposed to them selecting their own candidate. Now, this is happening right across the UK at the moment with Starmer. As we spoke about last week, is Starmer the dictator when it comes to the Labour Party. He's appointing Labour mayors, he's appointing Labour council leaders, he's appointing candidates. He's basically putting his placemen at the top everywhere in the Labour Party. He's wiping out the left. So Starmer has caused a stushy with Hamilton West and Rutherglen a constituency Labour Party because he's trying to impose a candidate on them. And that hasn't been doing well with the constituency Labour Party in Rutherglen, Hamilton West and Rutherglen, because they want to select somebody different for Starmer.
Yeah.
So there we go. So apparently, if he imposes this candidate, then Labour delegates and Labour members in Rutherglen and Hamilton West will not be campaigning on behalf of the candidate that Starmer imposes.
Yeah.
So his visit to Rutherglen didn't go well. It ended up with Stushy with his own party. And of course, the Tories pulled their rug out from under him, as I say. But I'm not sure that they'll get the 8,400 signatures they need this close to an election. And as we know, Margaret's quite a popular MP in the area. She is popular with the people of Hamilton West and Rutherglen.
I think, at the end of the day, she made a silly mistake, right?
Nathan, he's not quite went back on them all yet. He kicked the EU votes for EU citizens with settled status into the long grass. That's about the only one of his 10 pledges that's left, actually.
Yeah.
That was kicked into the long grass. That one wasn't scrapped yet, but it will be.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, let's say, so they're the stories we've picked out for the news in Scotland. Will we move down that road?
Yeah. What's this about the Albanians?
Off. This one blew my head when I was reading it. Right. The Tory government in their hostile environment has decided that they're going to target Albanians. But now, I've had a look at this, folks. This is true. 1% of those coming across in small boats are Albanian. Over the last couple of years, 13,470 odds. Well, I don't know what number there. 13,714 Albanians have put in a request for asylum.
Yeah.
Only 1% of them have been processed so far. But they're putting out adverts on Instagram and Facebook in Albanian to warn them in France, thinking about coming here, that they will be arrested, detained, and deported, so don't bother. But why the Albanians when there's only 1% of them? 1% of those coming across are Albanians.
Well, I thought I actually thought that the Albanians were the ones where was more likely to be tied up with human trafficking and criminal groups and all the rest of it. I thought that was yeah.
But as I say, and they won't tell us how much they're spending on these adverts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's started. And this is once again dog whistles to the gamins. A culture war crap. Yeah. This is divide and conquer.
Yeah, of course it is.
Othering people in order to keep the peoples divided and no unite against the Tories.
Yeah.
So what you do is you find out what faction one section of the Tory support don't like, you have a pop at them. Then you move on to say LGBT. Then you move on to religions like the Muslim faith, which is taking a hammering for the Tories at the moment. The Nazi they couldn't have done it any better, could they? The National Conservative Conference.
Yes, I know. Hey, just don't go there. Please don't go there. Leave it alone.
Nazi, you just couldn't make it up. And some of the question came out of that place was hilarious. But you couldn't make it up. Nazi conference.
Fascism. 101.
Yeah.
Create an enemy that everybody can push against. Right?
Well, it would appear that this time it's the Albanians that are getting it.
It is. It has been the Scottish in the past, and it will be the Scottish again if we try to build up for a plebiscite election or whatever, right? But that's what they do. It happened in Germany in the 1930s. They actually were going against the communists. Well, the communists came around and kicked their heads in, right? So then, oh right, so they turn on the Jews. That's what fascists do.
Mark, I don't know how you tell if an Albanian for a Serbian. I haven't got a bloody Scooby. But you know.
Because they're more Scottish than Scottish. Anyway, right, anyway.
Anyway, somebody put up who are we to stop the Albanians from coming to pay homage to Norman Wisdom, because we know the Albanians love Norman Wisdom. So there you go. He was a national hero earlier, believe it or not.
Talking about comedians, I understand that Boris has sacked his brief. It was paid for by the taxpayer, right? I can't believe that. I mean, I honestly can't believe that somebody in his position, who was clearly guilty of everything as charged, would take on a set of solicitors to look after him and have it paid for by the British people.
Aye, but the taxpayer. And then this is to do with the inquiry, the Cabinet Office folks, honing our diary entries that Bojo had made about parties he was having at Chequers. And that's been handed over to the police. Now, Boris was asked about it at an airport by a Sky reporter who was doggedly following him. And he basically said it's a lot of nonsense. It's that much nonsense that he sacked his legal team. Because his legal team basically allowed the Cabinet Office to present this stuff to the coppers. I think Riishi's planning on keeping Bojo in the long grass for a long time. He's no riding back to the rescue of the Tory party anytime soon, is he?
He's a busted flush, but I think if certain figures within the Tory party could have it their way, he'd be back in number 10.
As I say, but that takes us back to Bojo and Trump. That's a pair of Moscow assets. Yeah. You know, Putin owns both their arses. Putin put Trump in the White House. Putin put Bojo in number 10.
Yeah.
With Trump in the White House, it's alleged that Putin interfered with that election to get him elected.
Yeah.
And with Bojo and the Tories, and still the Tories, are being funded by Russian oligarchs. Yeah. In fact, recently, one of these Russian oligarchs has just given £3 million to Rishi Sunak's Tory party.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Tories are basically Russian assets. Yeah, how the Russians influenced UK and American politics, absolutely. They bought their prime minister and they bought their president. I mean, Trump owes millions to the Russians. Millions.
I mean, talking about Boris, right? If he sacked his brief, right, there's no chance of any one of those lawyers coming out and blowing a whistle on him properly and saying, "Oh, it said this in his diary and it said that," and actually, okay, they'd never work as a lawyer again, but they'd probably make more money out of doing that.
Yeah, likely, aye. But all that's going to happen is there'll be another legal team appointed by Bojo and the taxpayers will still have to pay it.
Yeah.
No.
Right, so the next item is...
And Jim Bob thinks Trump might be the next US president. Education standards are there, Jim Bob. I don't. You need to ask Ginger Giraffes about that.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. The next item is tourist tax. £2 per night for 5 nights.
Aye, there's a sushi going on.
Yeah, I really don't know why there's a sushi going on. I mean, I do remember where I went to Croatia with my wife. We got to the hotel, which was the big Sheraton hotel, and the very, very first thing we did is they took our passport off us. They charged us, I forget how much it was, but it was something like €30 or something like that we paid as a tourist tax. Tourist tax, in my way of thinking, is absolutely common sense, because tourists come in, they're not all nice and clean and all the rest of it. Some leave a bloody mess behind, right? So therefore, if a tourist tax is raised, then it allows us to use that money to actually do the clean-up. Yeah?
Anyway, the Scottish and Welsh Parliaments at the moment are putting through legislation to allow councils to levy a tourist tax on tourists coming into their areas. Now, the Edinburgh scheme proposes that they would tax people £2 a night for the first 5 nights of their stay.
Yeah.
Right, so basically a tenner.
Yeah.
Tenner a visit.
Yeah, to the majority of tourists coming in, £10 is bugger all. It really is bugger all. Yeah. Yet, with a number of tourists over a given period, that turns into quite a number.
Well, what the Tories are saying in Scotland and in Wales is it will discourage tourists, but as we know, tourism is down massively since Brexit anyway. Yeah. You'll have to excuse Madam Director buzzing about behind me in the screen, folks. But as I say, what's interesting is there's been a massive drop-off in tourists going to London, but there's been an increase in tourists going to Edinburgh. Yay! So, plenty of tourist tax for Edinburgh City Council.
Just on a different matter there, David. It's like I understand that Madam Director has been doing a wee bit of fly-by-night work in Paris, and she's wearing a gilet jaune as she walks about. Yes, and getting involved in the protests in Paris. Is that right?
What's going on? Something's upset. Right, what's next? We've done the tourist tax.
Forget it. Right. Sunak plans a price cap on foods. So is that a cap in the same way as they didn't cap the energy bills?
Aye. No, what he wants is a voluntary scheme where right, in the bedroom. Hey, sorry, the director's thrown me. So, where were we again? Oh, Sunak's price cap. He wants a voluntary scheme by supermarkets to put a price cap on basics. What the supermarkets are saying is that will cause food shortages. But as you and I know, when these checks are introduced later this year, food shortages are coming anyway. So this is just preparedness for it, basically.
Now, this also brings us to another point I was trying to make. And I had this image of Madam Director taking her clothes off and distracting David. But anyway, that's another matter. The price cap that has been announced on the energy market is a load of baloney. And I listened to one chap, an economist, explaining the other night there that effectively, if you took that price cap and you worked out the real figures, it meant that people would be losing £400, or would be gaining, £400. But then he went on to point out that we've already lost the £400 from the UK government. So in other words, it stays the same. In other words, Mr. Hunt actually invented the whole thing, gerrymandered the whole thing to allow him to scoosh about with the inflation figures, so that it came down 0.1%, so he could say, we've avoided a recession.
Aye. Now, Gingers, you're saying you're going to be in Edinburgh for 2 days in September. Let us know, we'll come out and have a chat.
That'll cost you £4, Ginger.
Right.
Anyway.
£4 increase, Ginger, until we can afford that.
If you can, we'll chip in £2 each, alright.
We'll buy you a coffee while you're here in Gingers. We'll have a chat about your ideas on Scottish independence. So let us know when you get here.
Well, we could buy him a cup of tea and the police would actually arrange his transport around Edinburgh. Yeah.
It's just Gingers is a female, David.
Sorry. Right. So I didn't know that. Gingers, as in Ginger Rogers. Right. Fine. Okay.
You got?
We signed it. We're demanding money from me. See the duty of fucking.
I'm no doing nothing. Tell her to piss off.
Yeah.
I will see it.
Right.
Sorry about that, folks. I know what's upset her. One of her nieces is looking for money. Right, anyway, so let's finish off on the Ipsos Mori poll. Well, I put it up.
Yes, put it up. Actually put it up so they can see, because they may not have seen it.
See if we can find it. Because all really that's been in the bloody news all weekend has been Schofield and Holly Willoughby having a fight with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see if we can find this bloody poll. Anyway, 53% for yes in the latest Ipsos Mori poll.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing that came through from the poll, was the fact that there was Ipsos Mori, and we now have independence, the want for independence, up to 53%. Yeah.
Aye.
So that effectively means that the whole nonsense about independence being women shot in the foot is nonsense. It's just nonsense, right? And believe it or not, the SNP figures are going up and up and up anyway. We're waiting on the next confirmation.
Are actually holding quite steady. I'll get to this poll as soon as I get done by all the things that other people have been posting on my timeline. Well, hell, if I go to my bloody timeline, actually, I was on the Nationals page here. For that last story I put up. So we shouldn't have MSM more, aren't we? Nah. See, as here, I'll find it in a second, David.
Yeah.
I just need to work my way doing it. I get an awful lot of people send stuff to my timeline. In fact, other people put more stuff in my timeline than I do.
Brian Cunningham's put up that he wants a crowdfund for Ginger.
He wants a crowdfunder for Ginger. Yeah. Why not?
Gary Sanderman says, the water companies are not in public hands. That's funny, right? In actual fact, I did hear it was one of these like city type things in the studio where the interviewer is talking to like 2 or 3 politicians from different parties, and it was a Tory politician that came up and said, "Well, in actual fact, not everywhere has water companies running their water as private companies." He said, "Wales doesn't have that. Wales has a water authority." And I was shouting at the TV, "What about Scotland, you numpty?"
Oh, I didn't want to talk about Scotland because obviously we've got clean water. I mean, when we do have what we call overflow because of heavy rain and things like that, it's no controlled discharge. It's no actual discharges. It is just overflow.
The last time that we had a major discharge was several years ago, and it was Cameron House in the Loch Lomond area, right? Many of you might know Cameron House. What happened was that the pump system broke down, and it meant they were squishing shite everywhere, right? And
can't find the poll, David, unfortunately. Anyway, voting intentions for Westminster election, 41% for the SNP, 29% for Labour. So the SNP's got a 2-point gain there. And the Labour's went down to 31. The Tories are at 18%. The Lib Dems are at 6%. The Greens are at 3%. And I didn't see any specific polling for Alpha, so they must be in the other section again, meaning they didn't poll enough. But a long way out for an election, so that could change. Now, Holyrood voting intentions.
David, given their due, they now have 7,000 members.
Yes.
And at the time that they've been alive, it's like we've got to concede that that's bloody brilliant.
That is brilliant. That is, aye.
But it's going to take a lot of time for them to gain any traction in terms of getting people into power, right?
Anyway, Holyrood voting intentions in the poll was a 42 for constituencies. This is 42% SNP. Basically mirrors the Westminster voting intentions. 29 Labour, 17 Tories, and down we go. 6 Lib Dem, 3 Green, and then the rest is others.
Gordon McKenzie saying that YouGov had Alba on 3%.
Aye.
So fair dues. As far as
the last YouGov poll, they did poll.
Yeah.
See, this time they haven't polled the Ipsos Mori, but they are a young party. They've got a long way to go, David.
Yeah.
They're a very young party. They've got a long way to go. So, but as I say, in this particular Ipsos Mori poll, they don't seem to be polling And which is the same, but they'll be in the other section. They haven't broke the other section down.
As far as I'm concerned, at the moment, it's neither here nor there.
No.
But it's nice to see that they are progressing a little bit.
Yes, and also on the regional vote list, the SNP's polling at 35, Labour's polling at 29 again, and didn't we go until we get to the others again, you know, basically they mirror each other.
What do you think? I mean, I take it that's in terms of a Scottish election.
I know that covers. Thanks very much for that donation. Thanks, Phil. No, that covers Westminster voting intentions, Holyrood voting intentions, and the independence voting intentions at this point in time.
Nathan McAllister said, David McGuinness, could you ever make a video warning people not to vote Labour and tell people that Labour are Tories? And in actual fact, it's already been done by Al Jazeera. They did a really, really cracking documentary on the Labour Party. I forget what it was called. Do you remember what it was called?
The Labour Files.
There you go.
It comes in, there's about 8 parts to it now.
Got to anybody who's thinking of voting Labour, go watch that, and you'll end up not voting. I don't know. You'll be voting for that monster raving loony party.
But I'll give it a thought, and what I maybe do is put together a programme. I maybe put together a short on Starmer, and is the fact that he's a Tory, and the fact that he's broken all his pledges, that he made to take over the Labour Party as leader, and the fact that he's actually admitted that he's a Tory in the press.
And we do have an awful lot of people that are dyed in the wool Labour supporters. The other day there was Jeremy Corbyn's birthday, and they were all wishing Jeremy Corbyn a happy birthday, and they would never do the same for Keir Starmer. So these people know that Starmer is a bit of a bad lad.
He's in from power. He's just a Tory.
Yeah.
As we know, he's already admitted to being a Tory. He's saying, if I sound Conservative, it's because I am.
Yeah.
Just the way it is. Right. We're up on Marua, David. So it's just the time to wind this up.
You do it this time. On you go.
All right, folks. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button because it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and it lets us get more toys to play with. And of course, if you're watching this on Facebook, give me a couple of minutes to we'll finish the broadcast to make the video public because Meta has restricted my reach. And the other thing is, if you liked us, we're the Two Davies. If you didn't like us, we're the Sir Ian Livingston Appreciation Society. That just leaves us with one thing left to do, David.
Bye, Davey. Bye, guys.
Bye, folks.